Coming to paperback and e-readers this February, Isis, Samurai Goddess. The goddess next door takes on kung fu killers in this action-packed martial arts Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Samurai Goddess in paperback and e-readers this February. I got a response to my video where the civil rights movement went wrong that was downright disturbing. Instead of trying to discuss their position based on the arguments I presented in the video where the civil rights movement went wrong, where I talked about how this civil rights movement in the 1960s went from a movement discussing trying to get equal rights under the law for black men who were killed, like Emmett Till was killed, or to get equal access to economic resources for education, like Brown versus Board of Education was supposed to provide, and to provide equal access to government jobs, like trying to get black police officers hired instead of having black communities policed by white people. I got an ad hominem attack thrown at me talking about my unemployment situation. And I got another ad hominem attack at me trying to say that, again, I'm trying to be like David Carroll and I need to stop trying to be like David Carroll. Now, the response trying to compare me to David Carroll, again, I am not offended by, because, again, when you put me in the position on the same level as the intellectual juggernaut, you are not offending me, because that, as I see it, is a compliment, because you are saying that I am on the same level that he is. Even though I do not believe I am on the same level that he is, I take that as a great compliment to how intelligent people see me as. Because, again, when I look at that civil rights movement, I see it as it went from a movement that was discussing, equal rights and equal opportunity to white acceptance. And this is where the civil rights movement went wrong as I saw it. And these individuals who went to attack me on my unemployment situation don't know how wrong they went when they went there. Because, again, it shows me how weak they are at debating, and it shows me that my arguments are pretty much valid, because when you have to go into ad hominem attacks towards an individual when they are presenting facts to you, it clearly shows that you pretty much have no legs to stand on. Because for you to talk about my unemployment situation pretty much shows that everything that I'm saying is resonating with you, and you are butthurt because what I am saying to you is pretty much so factual that you cannot refute any of it. Now, if you want to talk about my unemployment situation, we will talk about my unemployment situation. As everyone knows, I have been out of work for the past 8 years, and I have been looking for a full-time job for the past 8 years. However, while I have been looking for a job for the past 8 years, I have gone on to do a lot of different things. When I first lost my job in 2008 at the City College of New York due to the malicious actions of a college professor and his pro-black office assistant, I went on, and instead of me trying to go back and forth with these people, I decided when they said I was terminated, I just decided I would just go get my coat, call my family, let them know where I was, and I just left the building. I just said, I'm just going to move on. And after I moved on, the first thing I did was I went to the Manhattan Educational Opportunity Center and I took a course in PC repair. And then after that, while I was doing that, I was out here looking for another job. And I wound up back on the civil service list. And while I was on that civil service list, I took another exam, two other civil service exams for two more civil service jobs. But in the 3 years after I took those civil service exams, I realized that I had wasted enough time trying to chase another civil service job, and I decided to put a period at the end of things. Because when I went to these hiring pools, I clearly saw definite discrimination against black men at these hiring pools, because they would make every effort to go out here and hire females, whether they be white females, black females, Latina females. They just hired females over men. And that's because the HR people there were pretty much female. And they thought, oh, we're going to meet these affirmative action quotas by hiring more females. Now, I passed the civil service exam that I took in 2009 with an 80. And I just said after a while, I was spending my unemployment in bus fare and going back and forth to these interviews, and it wasn't coming of anything. In 2012, I decided to put a period at the end of it and move on because I clearly saw the pattern of discrimination. However, I called it out, but they said it was unsubstantiated because, HR manginas, they're just going to sit there and take the female side instead of the male side. But during that same time, I was out here taking CompTIA's A+ exam. I was studying for that, and while I was studying for that, again, I went and took this exam, scored about an 834 on this in the 20201 and 22602. So I scored very high on this A+ exam. And I pretty much know how to repair PCs. But again, I was looking for an opportunity to enter the job market there, but I just was not finding any opportunities, just like I wasn't finding any opportunities with civil service. And while I was doing this, working on a civil service exam, looking for civil service jobs, and I was studying for CompTIA's A+ back in 2009, I was starting the work of putting together the SJS Direct imprint. Now, working on books has been something I had been doing since 2002 when I published the first ISIS. However, I had to stop because I just didn't have the money. I had planned to do an ISIS series all the way back in 2002. Unfortunately, I was never able to keep stable employment, and that's why I had to stop what I was doing. Now, in 2008, when I got this job, I set a goal for myself after, another protracted period of unemployment where I was trying to get this other book, the Cassandra Cook book, sold to publishers. I was trying to get agents and publishers to pick this one up, but they just didn't pick it up because the book, again, did not fit the narrative of, as I find out now, white feminist and black feminist publishers. I just decided to just take the book and publish it myself. And I set a goal for myself for getting this book published in 90 days. And that's 90 days of working at that City College Library. I worked within 90 days. I got that book published. And as I was working there, I was marketing this book, promoting it, sending it to different book clubs, black book clubs all over the country, and trying to get the word out about this book. I even told people at my college about this book. I sent this book to my college, and everyone knew that I had published this Cassandra Cook book back in 2008. And this was just some of the work I was doing. And even though I had lost my job in October of 2008, I trusted in God and decided to keep going and continuing to push towards moving myself ahead. And this is in spite of all the obstacles I have faced, over the last 8 years. I have gone on from publishing 2 books in 2008 to getting close to publishing my 50th book this year. And that's a major milestone, when I think about it, to come that far and make that much progress in 8 years. That I pretty much went from 2 print-on-demand books from 1 print-on-demand publisher to having my own publishing imprint right now and having the 50th book getting ready to come out this year. And that shows, again, my drive, my tenacity, and my passion for writing and publishing. It also shows my heart as a writer, because when you are a writer, you pretty much put your heart into every story you pretty much write and you pretty much publish, because in order for you to stay with that story, you have to have heart to continue writing that story day in and day out and stay committed to writing that story day in and day out. And it shows in all the work that I have produced over the last 8 years. I mean, it just shows, how much drive I have to sit there and write story after story after story and continue to do this, even though I'm dealing with an unemployment that ran out in 2010, a savings that pretty much ran out a couple years ago, and I'm still out here, still persevering, still pushing, and still trying to do the best that I can with what I have and what resources that are in front of me. And this is something that many of these Negroes out here don't understand about. They want to sit here, and make ad hominem attacks about me, talking about, what your job situation is, instead of seeing what I'm trying to present to them. Because many of these same Negroes who will sit there and try to defend these dysfunctional civil rights leaders who sent you into a ditch were the same Negroes who pretty much would support these same, again, these civil rights leaders who led you into this ditch, and are the same guys who walked away from the whole black economic infrastructure that was maintaining this black community and keeping it in a functional state. Because that's what the civil rights movement did. It went from a course talking about equal rights and equal opportunity to a civil rights movement that is just focused on getting goodies from the government and getting acceptance from white people. And that's not what civil rights was supposed to be about in the first place. Civil rights was supposed to be about equal rights under the law, equal protection under the law, and equal opportunity and resources under the law, the most important, because those black business owners and you black people were paying taxes to this government, and you were not getting equal service. And at the end of the day, when it came down to the civil rights movement, you were still not getting equal service, because you Negroes sat here, and because you wanted to sit at that Woolworth's lunch counter, you weren't thinking about getting the equal money for your public schools. You were not thinking about getting that brother who's living in the projects that job at the police department so he could patrol your neighborhood and protect your neighborhood. You weren't thinking about making sure that there were equal opportunities for black teachers to get jobs at your public school so that you could get a quality education and get the equal funding so that you could get the same books that those white kids were getting in those same schools. No, you Afro-American Negroes would rather attack me about my unemployment situation instead of focusing on what these civil rights leaders failed to do for you and what I was presenting in that video, showing you the things that they failed to do because they were so spellbound about fitting black into that white box and being accepted by white that they didn't understand what they needed to do to create a black community that would be functioning and being capable of taking care of itself instead of being taken care of by a welfare state, which pretty much sucks more resources out of your community than it brings in every year. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.